I'm Jim Check with KelownaNow. I'm here with Paul Barabonoff with Kootrac. Kootrac. There you go. Firefighting equipment, all kinds of equipment, actually, more than just firefighting equipment for oil fields and stuff like that. But basically vehicles that operate out in the bush, but forestry is kind of your main focus?
Forestry is our main focus. I started with a KMC several years ago. My background is harvesting timber. I was approached by them to do all of their away from the shop work. I've worked in the cable logging, conventional logging. This equipment enhances it. It works in areas where you don't necessarily need cable, you don't necessarily need conventional. It works in the middle. Very good in swamps.
Maybe we'll show some pictures of it, Jason. Maybe you
Sure.
can run some video, and you can talk over this, so you can keep talking though. So that looks like a small skidder, actually, doesn't it?
It is. It's a steel track skidder. We're the only ones in North America that build a steel track skidder.
Steel track, then, right?
Steel track, yeah.
Okay.
It's the industry refers to.
So obviously you don't want a rubber track out there in the bush; it'll just break all the time, probably, right?
Sure.
I'm asking for the public because that'd be the question people would have, right?
We get our competition is a rubber track machines.
Yeah.
And we don't understand. The rubber track is far inferior. It does not handle the aggressive terrain.
Well, if you're going over logs and different things, it's just going to tear it up, right? Obviously.
And so a big part of what I do is the education part of it, to say, look, you want the proper equipment in the proper terrain. Yeah. And this equipment works in the most extreme environments. So whether it's swamps, whether it's steep ground, workers' compensation, we're at a 50% slope, favorable and adverse, and a 35% side hill. That exceeds any other skidder on the market.
Right. So the purpose of these machines is, well, for forestry, one, but then how do they interact? Like, what's their purpose in wildfires? Is that just cutting cut lines and different things,
no,
breaks?
The machine can, in a very short amount of time, meaning hours, can be converted from a piece of logging equipment to a piece of firefighting equipment. And with its ability on rough terrain, and its ability to carry well over 1,000 gallons of water and tow a couple thousand gallons of water as well, we can take a lot of water to a very extreme location.
Right. So you're taking
far more economically than you can do by air.
Right. So like for initial TAC crews and stuff like
Correct.
that. Right?
Or a mop up especially.
Right. So once they built the fire line and that, and this equipment is obviously used in building fire lines as well.
Absolutely. It can be equipped with blades, whether they be a 2-way blade or a 6-way blade, and can compete with regular dozers and carry the water on top of that.
So you guys are based in the Kootenays.
Yes, sir.
Where's the bulk of your sales for this equipment?
80% the continental United States.
And why not? How much in British Columbia?
Less than 5%.
Why is that?
Good question.
That's why I'm asking. So where are they buying equipment from somebody else? Or?
The forest industry, this machine is somewhat of a canary in a coal mine. So the forest industry in the last, I think it's 6 years, we were cutting half the timber we were cutting.
Yeah, I've done tons of forestry stories, and the fiber allocation is just getting worse and worse.
And several of our customers have stopped using their machines because the forests that they were going to log are now carbon sinks, or the timber is now being used as a carbon credit. So and with the machine working in the extreme areas, whether it be steep ground or whether it be wet ground, they're the first to not be harvested then.
So what about in wildfire? Obviously, then it's kind of, you can use whatever you would think to mitigate a fire.
You can. The benefit to the product that we produce, once again, is its stability, its payload capacity, its safety. We have customers in the United States that own 1, 2, 3. We have one customer that owns 9 in Montana. He services counties from Montana to the California to the West Coast.
I've done numerous interviews with John Rustad, the leader of the Conservative Party here in British Columbia. Part of his plan for forestry is to get a bunch of firefighting equipment. Does that include some of your stuff?
Sure.
Do you think?
I hope so. We taking the playbook from the federal government. Several years ago, they shut down a bunch of lighthouses, and then they equipped Native communities with equipment to respond to a maritime disaster. Our office felt we could do the same thing with remote communities in British Columbia. We put together a package where we would deliver a machine, train the community to use it, even train someone to maintain it. It would in our proposal we offered that someone would come to our shop and work for a month to learn the machine, and we would. The machine is versatile. They could do fuel mitigation. They could do protection. They could even do search and rescue because the machine can quickly change what it's carrying on the back. And of the 20 communities that we sent packages to, we didn't get one response. And that's what I mentioned to John.
Yeah. So why do you think, like the BC NDP's obviously been in power for 7 years? Why do you think they're not looking at British Columbia companies for some of this equipment, or are they just not buying that type of equipment?
I've spoken to every level of government, from the forest minister down to the community volunteer fire chief, and I don't get an answer. I get a that's a fantastic machine. It's wonderful. It can do all kinds of things. Okay, where do we go from here? And
I mean, your story
just doesn't go.
Your story is not original. I also did an interview with Coulson Aviation, largest wildfire fighting company in the world, right? The owners of the Mars Bomber, which is now retired, they just, I think it was 7 or 11. I don't know, I can get this wrong. You go back and read the story. They just bought a bunch of 737s, have the largest equipment, and yet they have zero contracts with British Columbia, and they fight fires in Oregon and California and Australia and everywhere, but they have zero contracts with BC, and they're a Port Alberni company.
We have more firefighting equipment in Australia than we do in British Columbia.
Why is that? Like, does BC government not want to support BC companies? You feel free to speak.
That would be a great question to ask the gentlemen that are running for office.
I'm asking you. I will ask them after. I'm asking you right now. Like, what do you think the problem is? Because wildfires, there's no two ways about it. Wildfires impact communities in British Columbia, especially outside the Lower Mainland, right?
The community it doesn't impact.
But especially the Okanagan, I would say. It's given us this Okanagan name. Our tourism is hurting. Everything is hurting. People are losing homes. We lost 200 plus homes a couple of years ago, and we lost, way back in 2003, we lost another couple hundred homes, and we lose homes all the time. Why doesn't it seem like when we have these assets in BC companies, yet we don't seem to want to work with them? No wrong answers here.
No. The approach, in my opinion, for the last several years has been top down, and if our communities feel that that's been working for them, great. But the customers that we deal with, the contractors that purchase our equipment, it's more of a bottom up approach. Look, let's start with us and let's build on that, as opposed to having somebody in a far off land telling us what to do. And that's why we approach the 20 remote communities. I mean,
you're not the sole voice in this. I've spoke to forestry logging companies or mills, and they say they're not being brought to the table for solutions for fighting wildfires, like the mitigation and harvesting more and stuff. They're not being asked to come to the table. And I spoke to the Premier himself, and he said yes, he's heard that as well. If everybody's heard it, why isn't it easy to fix?
This year, our company went to several different symposiums and several different, whatever the heck they're called, to spread the
industry events.
Yeah, and some of them were silviculture, some of them were firefighting, some of them were just like logging equipment shows. We're being told we have a great product, but it's just not getting used. And I don't. This is my first step.
I can tell you right now, like we spent over $1 billion last year fighting wildfires, and we spent very little preventing wildfires.
Yeah, and a seat at the table would be nice. And
you would think that would be like a given, and also like it seems like I'm an accountant as well, and I would say like, wouldn't we be better off spending the money in prevention as opposed to reaction.
Am I correct that we have the firefighting budget in BC is the only open-ended budget we have?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that seems to be the case for sure, yeah. Right? But obviously when there's a disaster, that you have to meet it with whatever you can. But even in that, why isn't Coulson Aviation part of that?
I can't speak for Coulson Aviation.
Neither can I, but I'm just, it's just it seems to be a question that needs to be answered. And I've asked that question, and I get different answers.
What do they say? You'll excuse me for not seeing their interview.
What? Political. Do you agree with that?
I would like the opportunity to bend the ear of the good people in Victoria.
Well, how long have you guys been doing this?
40 years.
How many years do you need?
It's a little bit more.
Do you know what I mean? I think part of the problem is that people are scared to speak, right? Because you talk and then you get ostracized, or you get like black book. But you're not in a situation where it's any good anyway.
In 40 years, KMC Kootrac has had cheerleaders, provincial, municipal, federal. They don't have that today. And if it's something that if I felt that the product was obsolete or irrelevant to the marketplace, okay, that's a justifiable reason. But when it's being used in so many other jurisdictions, when it's used in so many other countries.
Let me identify the problem for you, though. And I'll identify it in the words of many politicians. Climate change is our biggest threat, right? I'm going to say climate change is our biggest threat, according to many of the politicians that are in control and in power. And if that's the case, and wildfires are emitting the most carbon, why don't we throw everything but the kitchen sink at it?
You got my vote.
I'm just saying, it seems like a common sense approach, right? Why don't we throw everything but the kitchen sink at it?
I don't know. Perhaps prevention's not as sexy as dealing with.
Well, I'm going to tell you, like, it's sexy or not. The guy that loses his home, the family that loses the family that loses their home and loses everything, and then everything, the memories, everything that goes with it, and sometimes loss of animals and all that other kind of stuff, and sometimes loss of life. Sexy doesn't play into the conversation, right? They just want to be able to live a life without a lot of turmoil and stress.
I'm not arguing.
So
you had me below.
There you go. So I guess the question is, how do we get? And I've spoke to the Forest Minister, I spoke to the Jobs Minister, I spoke to the Premier, I spoke to John Rustad many times. I think it does start with conversations. I think all media needs to start asking tough questions, like, why aren't we doing this, right? Like the one that just drives me crazy is the Coulson Aviation one, right? Because I know I worked for Alberta Forestry when I was younger. It's the first few hours, first 12 hours, first 24 hours, right? Once the fire gets massive and a wind picks it up, there's no fighting it. It's get in front of it and put a brake in or hope for the best, right? But those first 12, 14, 24 hours where you can put equipment to it and you put the biggest aircraft you have at it.
And that's why I reached out to John. I wasn't being heard by other politicians. And I said, look, we're confused and bewildered as to why we would reach out to 20.
I think you got to get past confused and bewildered to angry. Because confused and bewildered doesn't seem to be working.
You're supposed to be angry. I'm supposed to be. I'm representing.
It's getting almost ridiculous. That's where we're at. Yeah, no, I get it.
And we know we're not the solution, but we sure feel we are a good part of it.
Well, if we're throwing the kitchen sink at it, I can't see why a BC company, why we're not looking at using BC companies. And it's not like your product is garbage, right? Because you're selling it.
We're selling it in other jurisdictions.
You're selling it in other jurisdictions. Why are they buying it?
Because it works.
Maybe they're not maybe they're not very smart.
No, they're very smart. They're very smart. and once we get the machine there, it's seen by other people.
So in the Coulson Aviation one, they sign long-term contracts. It's not like you can phone them up tomorrow and say, hey, you know what, we'll take 3 of those aircraft, because they're leased out, years in advance, right? So you got to put your name in for that. And imagine, say, you guys build equipment. It's not like you got a bunch sitting in the yard.
Since we're a small company, when a machine is purchased, a representative of the company flies out with the machine wherever it goes and stays there till they get a smile and a handshake. We never buy return tickets. We stand behind the products we build, and we don't leave until the customer's happy. And
Is there competition in BC for you guys? What you're doing? Similar stuff?
No. No.
There you go.
Globally, there isn't competition. Well, China makes a steel tracked vehicle. Russia makes a steel tracked vehicle. North America makes a steel tracked vehicle. That's us.
There you go. So we should buy from the Russians, I guess, right?
Oh, we could.
Just kidding. I'm just saying, why aren't we supporting BC companies? I mean, again, I'm going to go back to wildfires being the number one risk for Kelowna for sure. The central Okanagan, and not just the Okanagan, most of BC. The problem is most of the voting public is in the Lower Mainland, where they have a very wet climate and they don't get a lot of forest fire stuff, right? So they watch it on the news and they say, oh, it must be sucked to be up there. But and a lot of people in the Lower Mainland go to Stanley Park and they see all those beautiful trees and they think we shouldn't cut any trees down, right? And I've got that from one of the forest companies, right? Is that in the Lower Mainland there's this huge attraction to trees and they see them as these old growth forests, but like most of this forest is a renewable resource that should be actively managed so that we have young forests, because we can look to Finland and they have very few fires because they have a young forest.
I believe our own Forest Service would support saying that we have more trees now than we did 100 years ago.
I have a question for you. Do you think it's the bureaucrats that are the problem, or do you think it's the government in power? Because both of them are there making those decisions, right? The bureaucrats don't change often.
When a team loses the Stanley Cup, they seldom fire the whole team.
No, I get it, right? I'm just saying, like, the bureaucrats are the common threat, right? Because, I mean, Coulson Aviation said they've had trouble through the NDP and through BC United. Maybe we're focusing our attention on the wrong person.
Being in a small company, we're accountable for what we do. If we build a good product, we get praise. If we build a poor product, we definitely hear about it. That would go a long way if we did that in every aspect of society. Be more accountable.
Accountability would be good, right?
Yeah, be great. Be great.
And that's what I'm, that's the thing that we struggle with, is getting interviews and access to some of the politicians, because the bureaucrats really don't. It's tough to get a bureaucrat, right? Do you know what I mean?
Why would they want to?
Well, I get why they wouldn't want to, because they'd have to answer questions, but they're getting paid with public funds, so they should be accountable, right? Because again, it's the public purse, which comes out of your pocket, comes out of my pocket, right?
And their leadership should hold them accountable.
That's right. Absolutely.
And we should hold the leadership accountable. That's a good
system. Well, that's what we're trying to do. If you want more of the same, do that. And if you want change, do that, right? So this is your chance. This is your chance. The vote's on the 19th of October. So this is your chance to voice. If you like what's going on, great. And if you don't like what's going on, great. And then this is your chance to use your voice.
Early voting's already started.
Early voting's already started. So what are you guys doing to kind of get it out there more? Like what are you trying to do? You come on here. This should help, right? Yep.
As I said, we've gone to several conferences and symposiums and trying to talk to anybody to listen. Yeah. But it's expensive. For a small company.
I get it. It's tough, right? It's a tough slug, right? And getting contracts definitely helps, right?
Well, there was a time that our federal government had, what are they called? Industrial trips to whether it be to Australia, whether it be South America, to say, hey, these are our Canadian companies. Let's brag about them.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
And if we do that,
opening up the market for our companies,
sure,
right? For the export market.
Why wouldn't we want to? We do so much business in the United States. Our website quotes in U.S. currency. That we should be quoting in Canadian currency.
No, I get it. Anything else you want to add today?
Well, a pitch to the good people at KMC. We have good ownership. We have good attitude. We have really good people. They like where they live. They like who they work for. We produce a good product, and we'd like to keep doing that.
Where are you guys at in the Kootenays?
We're halfway between Nelson and Castlegar at the Crescent Valley Junction.
There you go. That's a beautiful area, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
Right? You know, the trees change there.
Yeah. No,
Spectacular.
it's a great place to live, tough place to make a living.
Yeah. Good place to be from, though. I love that area. Actually, absolutely. I was out there last fall, actually.
We would like the good people in every corner of British Columbia to know the product that we have and how it can help them.
I lived in Grand Forks before, too. Beautiful area as well.
Sunshine and borscht.
Sunshine and borscht. I think, well, not many hotels left to get borscht, though. I think there's only one on the corner there, like on the Railcoff store as you're pulling into town. I think they used to have 11 hotels when I lived there, I think. I think there's like maybe one. I don't know if there's
You
one.
should move back.
I should move back. I quit drinking. Maybe that's what happened. No, I think they all burned down. Anyway, thank you for coming in today.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for watching Kelowna Now.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.